So for our next period of instruction, we're going over the ball and dummy drill.
Can't hear you.
Now, the purpose of this drill is to identify, understand, and correct the issue we have when it comes to flinching before we take our shots. Now, when I say it's a problem, it's only a problem we apply to accurately shooting. But as far as a human function, it's perfectly normal. It's our autonomic nervous system, and that system manages the stresses in our bodies. For example, if we were to touch a hot stove, our hands will retract automatically because of the pain from the heat. Or when our alarms go off, we are startled and we are woken up. So the question is how do we fix the flinching we have when we fire a gun, or what's commonly known as the recoil anticipation? Well, there's no real answer other than you literally have to talk yourself out of not flinching. So let's dive a little deeper into that thought. For most people, the definition of a good shooter, that shooter must have 3 traits. He shoots fast, he hits black, and he keeps his muzzle flat. So when we go up and we do our steps and we present out, subconsciously we're trying to mimic those 3 traits. Because why? We want to be that shooter. I mean, I know I do. So, but here's the question. So if our autonomic nervous system acts automatically, how are we barrel dipping before the shot even goes off? You see, that's that idea that you are literally psyching yourself to flinch. Because when a round goes off, you're scared of it. I mean, I am all the time. But we fake it, you know, we have that bearing, act like we're tough. But it's that same idea that we're gonna have to psych ourselves into not flinching. And there's many methods of doing this. Like for one example, you could literally think to yourself and say, don't barrel dip, don't barrel dip, don't barrel dip. Or 2, you're gonna say it out loud. And you can be like, just pull the trigger, just pull the trigger, just pull the trigger. Now I recommend saying it out loud because now you're stimulating your senses. You're speaking, you're hearing, and you're thinking. That way it'll reinforce that action. Now for me, what works best for me is something I learned in the Marine Corps, and my shooting coach told me a simple idea that every shot I take, it should surprise me. So, and for me that just clicked. And that's my word when I go and present. I'm whispering to myself, surprise, 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 surprise. So that way I can just scratch that out of the picture and worry about just the basic fundamentals of doing what I gotta do before I take my shot. But essentially, you gotta figure out what works best for you because we're all different and it's a mental thing. Now, does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, so let's move on to the demonstration. Now, to execute this drill, you're gonna partner up with a loader and a shooter. Now, Kyle, you mind being a dummy? Dude, I just realized we're like fucking matching this shit up. God damn. Dude, I'm gonna hold hands later. No, but so as for the loader, his job is to load the shooter's magazine with either a live round or no rounds. And we're gonna do this for a total of 5 rounds, okay? Now, can you clear your weapon? Okay, so when you're loading, if you're either loading that round or not, no round in his magazine, you want to be standing behind the shooter because you want this information to be hidden. That way, when it comes for him to shoot, it keeps him guessing. He doesn't know whether there's a round there or not. So, I either load a round or not. He has, as you can see, he has his arm out of the way, so that's just a courtesy for me. So when I go and draw his weapon, I don't flag him. So just a reminder, so when you're drawing the weapon from the shooter, don't flag him or anyone off the line. So I draw his weapon. I load and make ready. Reholster his weapon. And then I'll Roger up. I'll give him a go ahead and let him do his thing. Okay, so put your eyes and ears on. Now before you start, Kyle, I want to iterate one other thing. Now, if you're standing behind the shooter and he's doing his thing, you're not going to be able to see shit, okay? So I want you to get up and close and personal so you have a clear view of his pistol. So when he fires it, then you can have a clear, accurate feedback you can give to your shooter, whether he's slapping the trigger, barrel dipping, whatever the case may be. Okay? So go ahead and do your thing. So he didn't do anything. That was a clean shot. Now there's some cases where he might barrel dip, and you'll have some shooters who just don't at all. But for our sake, let's just say that he did barrel dip, and you're just gonna acknowledge, tell him what he needs to correct, and then you move on from there. Now that's the loader's job. Now for the shooter, again, as you see, his job was easy. His job was just to fire the weapon. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be guessing whether I'm loading a round or not. You should treat every drill as if you had a live round. Right. But that's the gist of the ball and dummy. Lastly, I want everyone to stand on one leg right now. Okay, you can put your feet down. Now the purpose of that was to remind each and every one of you that you guys are all in leadership positions, okay? So when you're up here giving your speech, if you tell your students to do something, they're gonna do it. Now, for instance, as for the loaders, when you're observing your shooter and he's flinching, he is shooting too fast, he's barrel dipping, take the control away from him and run him through the steps. What we just learned is the percentage drill, which is a great drill to utilize in conjunction with the ball and dummy. So for instance, Kyle, you're shooting too fast, you're barrel dipping. So what we're gonna do next in this next drill is that I'm gonna control your movements. I'll get you to the peak, you're gonna hit that 70, 80, 90 break. So essentially you're controlling every aspect of his shooting. That way you can hone in and rectify the issues he's having, okay? Because as instructors, you wanna be able to give that good positive feedback to your students. Because you slapping the trigger or you barrel dipping, it's pretty obvious at that point. Us acknowledging it is not gonna do us any good. Okay, so any questions on that? Okay, great, let's do this.
Sweet.